He saved me from a car crash, then vanished. I was pinned inside my car, the smell of smoke getting thicker by the second. I could hear sirens in the distance, but the fire under the hood was close, and it was growing. Then, a face appeared in my window. A man I'd never seen before tore my door open and pulled me from the wreck just moments before the car was swallowed by flames. He saved my life, but when I turned to say thank you, he was gone. This is the story of the man who rescued me and the mystery he left behind. Section 1. The Backstory. It was a Tuesday. Just a completely normal, forgettable day. I was driving home from a late meeting. You know the kind, the one that should have been an email. I was tired, my brain was numb, and I decided to take the shortcut. It's a winding country road I'd driven 1,000 times, a nice break from the drone of the interstate. The sun had already dipped below the horizon, and the familiar trees waved like old friends as I drove past. I remember my playlist was some quiet acoustic stuff, the kind of music you put on to just decompress. The windows were cracked, letting in that cool evening air that smells like damp earth right before it rains. I was thinking about dinner, about my couch, about all the simple, boring things I was looking forward to at home. I was basically thinking about everything and nothing all at once. There's this one curve on that road that's sharper than it looks. It has a faded warning sign I'd long since started to ignore. I knew this road, right? I knew every dip and turn. Or at least I thought I did. But that night, the darkness felt a little deeper. A light drizzle had started, making the asphalt slick with a nearly invisible sheen. It was the perfect quiet stage for total chaos. Looking back, it's the ordinariness of it all that haunts me. The calm before my world was ripped apart. There was no warning, no sudden chill, no voice in my head telling me to slow down. It was just another drive home on another Tuesday, until it wasn't. It was the last moment of my old life, a life where I thought I was in control. Section 2. The Crash. A solid wall of muscle and wide-eyed panic, staring right at me for a split second that felt like a lifetime, and I did what they always tell you not to do. I swerved. It wasn't a decision. It was pure instinct. I yanked the wheel hard to the left, and I'll never forget the sound of my tires screaming as they lost their grip on the wet pavement. Time warped. The acoustic music vanished under the shriek of rubber and the sick lurch of the car as it spun completely out of my control. The world turned into a violent blur of green and brown as I shot off the road. I remember the brutal thump, thump, thump as the tires hit the uneven shoulder, and then a gut-wrenching feeling of weightlessness as the car went down an embankment. There was a terrifying float, and then the first impact. The passenger side hit an old oak tree with an explosive sound of crunching metal and shattering glass. My head slammed against my window with a sickening crack. The only thing that kept me from flying through the windshield was my seatbelt, which bit so hard into my chest and shoulder it felt like I'd been struck by lightning. The car spun again in a monstrous, grinding pirouette before the front end slammed into another tree, stopping everything with a final violent jolt. Then, silence. A deep, ringing silence that was somehow louder than all the noise. And then the pain, a sharp, searing fire in my shoulder, a dull, throbbing ache in my head. I tried to move, but my leg was pinned by the crushed dashboard. The driver's side door was crumpled in, pressing against me like I was in a vice. I was caged, a wisp of smoke curled up from under the hood, carrying a chemical smell of burning oil and melting plastic. At first it was thin, but it quickly turned into a thick, black, choking cloud that started seeping in through the vents. Cold, sharp panic cut through the fog in my head. I clawed at the door handle, but my fingers were clumsy, weak. It wouldn't budge. I was trapped, and then the smell of gasoline hit me, and I saw it, a tiny flicker of an orange flame under the hood. It was small, but I knew what it meant. Section 3. The Rescue and the Vanishing. My world had shrunk to the inside of that mangled car. The smoke was thick now, burning my eyes and my throat. The wail of a distant siren felt like it was in another universe, impossibly far away. Hope was slipping away, replaced by a raw, animal fear. I kept pulling on the door, but it was useless. I was exhausted, dizzy, and I was starting to think, this is it. This is how I die. And then a shape in my shattered window, a face. It wasn't a first responder. He looked like he'd just walked out of the woods, out of the rain and the darkness. He was so calm it felt alien in the middle of all that chaos. He had a weathered, kind face, and his eyes seemed to look right past the wreck and the smoke, straight into my panic. He didn't yell, he didn't ask if I was okay, he just acted. The door's jammed, I croaked, my throat raw. He just nodded once, his expression focused. He put his hands on the top of the door frame, where the metal was twisted into a mess. I remember thinking, that's impossible. No one can just pull open a crushed car door. But he planted his feet, and with a strength that didn't seem human, he started to pull. The metal groaned and screamed in protest. I could see the veins in his neck bulge from the effort. And then, with a final tearing screech, a gap opened up. It was just enough. He didn't waste a single second. He reached in, his hands surprisingly gentle, and figured out how to get me out. "Your leg," he said, his voice low and steady. He looked at how the dashboard had me pinned, and with one calculated, powerful shove, he moved the wreckage just enough for me to pull my leg free. The pain was blinding, but the adrenaline was stronger. "We have to go now," he said, his voice firm. The little flame I'd seen wasn't little anymore. It was a hungry blaze, starting to lick up the side of the engine. He wrapped a strong arm around my waist and pulled me through the opening he'd made with an ease that made no sense. He half carried, half dragged me away from the car, back up the slippery embankment to the road. Every step was agony, but his grip was solid, a real anchor in a nightmare. We got to the edge of the asphalt just as the first ambulance arrived, its lights painting the trees in frantic flashes of red and blue. He gently set me down on the wet ground, my back against a tree. "You're safe now," he said. A wave of relief so powerful it nearly made me pass out washed over me. I looked up at him, my vision blurry from the rain and tears. I tried to say thank you, to ask his name, to understand who this man was who had appeared like an angel out of the dark. Who? I managed to get out. He just gave me a small, almost sad smile. He put a finger to his lips as if to say, "Shoo." Then he turned around and just walked away, melting back into the same shadows he'd come from. A moment later, a paramedic was kneeling in front of me. As she was checking my pulse, a sound like a bomb exploded through the night. I turned my head just in time to see my car become a fireball, flames bursting through the roof and windows. If I'd been inside for 10 more seconds, I'd be gone. I whipped my head back, frantically searching the woods. "The man!" I yelled to the paramedic. "The man who pulled me out. Where did he go?" She gave me that confused, pitying look people give to accident victims in shock. "Ma'am," she said gently, "there was no one else here when we arrived. You were alone." Section 4, The Aftermath and the Mystery. The next few days were a blur of hospital rooms, insurance calls, and worried faces. I had a severe concussion, a fractured collarbone, and a badly sprained ankle, but everyone kept saying the same thing: "It's a miracle you're alive." And every time they said it, all I could think of was the face in my window. It wasn't a miracle, it was him. As soon as I could think straight, I told my story to a police officer. I described the man, his calm, his impossible strength, his sudden disappearance. The officer listened patiently, but then he gave me that same look the paramedic had. "It's common for trauma victims to have vivid hallucinations," he explained. "Your brain was just trying to cope." He said the first responders on the scene swore no one else was there. But I insisted. I wasn't crazy. I knew he was real. There was no evidence, though, no extra footprints. No one in the area saw a man on the road. He was gone without a trace. That's when my obsession started. The gratitude I felt was a living thing inside me, a debt so huge it felt like it had its own weight. I desperately needed to find him, to say thank you. I've since learned that this feeling isn't uncommon for people saved by anonymous strangers. It's a deep human need to thank the person who gave you your life back. My friends had theories. Maybe he was a drifter, or someone with a warrant who didn't want to talk to the cops. Those are logical guesses, but they just didn't feel right. There was nothing scared or threatening about him. He was just there to help. He didn't do it for a reward. He did it because someone was in trouble. I tried to find him. A friend posted my story on social media, and it was shared hundreds of times. The comments were full of people calling him a guardian angel, or a true hero. A surprising number of people even shared similar stories of their own mysterious helpers. But no one came forward. The local paper ran a small article. Still nothing. It was like he was a ghost, a ripple in reality that disappeared as fast as he arrived. Weeks turned into months. The search died down, but the mystery never did. I'd drive by the crash site and see the 2 scarred oak trees that now serve as a monument to that night. I would stare into the woods, half expecting to see him standing there. The question of who he was slowly turned into why. Why just leave? Maybe he didn't want the attention. Maybe for him, the act of helping was all that mattered. It's been over a year now. The scars have faded, and my bones have mended. I have a different car, and I take the long way home these days. On the surface, things are back to normal. But under the surface, everything has changed. I never found him. The man who saved me is still a ghost, a mystery woven into my life story. I still have nights where I lie awake and replay it all in my head, the smoke, the fire, and that calm face in my window. I still feel that huge weight of gratitude, a feeling so big I have nowhere to put it. But living with this unanswered question has changed me. The world, which I used to think of as random and sometimes cruel, now feels like it has a hidden layer of grace. It's a place where, in your darkest moment, a total stranger might just walk out of the woods and pull you from a fire, asking for nothing in return. This experience didn't just give me a story to tell, it gave me a new pair of eyes. I noticed the small, selfless acts of kindness that happen all the time. I've learned that real heroism isn't always about parades and news articles. Sometimes, it's a quiet, anonymous person stepping into someone else's nightmare to lead them back to safety and then disappearing before they can even be thanked. I may never know his name or see his face again, but I will carry the lesson of what he did with me forever. He saved me from a car crash, then vanished. But in leaving, he gave me back more than just my life. He restored my faith in the quiet, mysterious, and powerful goodness of people. Have you ever had a moment like this? An act of kindness from a stranger that just stayed with you? Share your stories in the comments. I'd love to read them. And if you believe in the power of these kinds of stories, think about subscribing for more. You never know when you'll hear something that reminds you of the good in the world.